Hey, what's up everyone? This is Noble, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my Magical Musketeer deck profile. So this is actually one of my favorite decks to play. I really like it. It's really fast paced, and I really wanted to go over it, especially since Kaspar and Starfire, the two cards that were reprinted in Dual Overload that are the heart and the soul of the deck, they got reprinted, so they are a lot cheaper, a lot more available to us now. Kaspar was sitting at I think he was like $19-$20, close to that, and then Starfire was about 15-16 a piece, and you needed three of both of them, and that really made the deck not very budget friendly at all. But now it is because, like I said, they got reprinted, and I think these are like $1 a piece now for the ultra rare reprints, and they're really beautiful. Ultra rare reprints are really beautiful. I pulled like 6 Starfire and 3 Caspars, and I just absolutely love them. I still have the originals because I didn't know they was getting reprinted when I made this deck. So, oh well, but it's still nice to have the originals, I guess. But for those of you who haven't really seen the Magical Musketeers, just to save time in this video, what they do is all Magical Musketeers share an ability that during either player's turn you can activate Magical Musketeer spells and traps from your hand. So it really takes this deck and makes it into a hand trap deck. That's really strong because you don't have to lay anything down. Your opponent can't really pop things, and they're constantly having to worry about what's in your hand. And then they have kind of like a Magnite component to them, to where they all do certain things when a spell or trap card is activated in their column. For instance, actually, we'll just get right into it. So to start off, we play 3 Kaspar, which I'm so glad to say is much easier to do now. What he does is when a spell or trap card is activated in his column, you can add a Magical Musket card from your deck to your hand, but not a card with the same name as the activated card. So if you play like a Desperado or a Last Stand, you can't search out another copy of Desperado or Last Stand, but that's fine because if we play Desperado, we're probably not going to be searching out another one. Same for Last Stand, we'll probably be, if I play Last Stand, I'll probably be searching out Desperado or maybe a Dancing Needle, something like that. But you always want to open with Kaspar, like you really want him in your opening hand. Him and Starfire are definitely the 2 cards you look for in your opening hand, which we play 3 of Starfire. What she does is when a spell or trap card is activated in her column, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Magical Musket monster from your deck in defense position. So she's really good to be able to bring out, like if we don't have Kaspar but we have Starfire and a any spell or trap card that we have, you're just playing it in her column, then being able to bring out Kaspar and then firing off his ability as well. That's really good. So for the draw power of the deck, we play 3 Kid Brave. Now you don't have to play Kid Brave at 3, but I like to because like I said, he's the draw power of the deck. He's a really good effect. Toward if a spell or trap card is activated in his column, you can discard 1 Magical Musket card and draw 2 cards. So if we kind of brick, which doesn't happen too often, but it happens everywhere, so it will happen to you eventually. And if it does, you have Kid Brave to back you up, and he really helps out with that. I play 1 wild. I don't really think you need any more than 1 wild. What he does is when a spell or trap card is activated in his column, you can target 3 Magical Musket cards in your graveyard and shuffle all 3 into the deck, and then you draw a card. So he's a really good late game situation card, to where if you've used a lot of resources and they're in your graveyard now, if you play your spell or trap in his column, just being able to shuffle those resources back into the deck and being able to draw a card is really good. I play 1 Calamity. Because Calamity does some graveyard shenanigans as well, to where if a spell or trap card is activated in this card's column, you can target 1 Magical Musket monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So just being able to bring back Starfire or Mastermind Zakiel or Kaspar or whatever we need, she's really good for that. I play 1 Doc. I really struggled if I wanted to play any Docs, but I think I do want to play 1 just for his resource ability, because if a spell or trap card is activated in his column, you can add 1 Magical Musket card in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, but not a card with the same name as the original activated card. So like I said, same thing with Kaspar. If you activate a Desperado, you can't add back a Desperado from your graveyard to your hand, but that's fine. But if we have a really good resource in the graveyard, he's a really good way to bring that back out. For the last 2 Magical Musketeer monsters, we play 2 Magical Musketeer Mastermind Zakiel. He's like kind of the boss monster of the deck. These guys don't have a ton of attack power. That's something that we address in a little bit with a spell card that we play. But Mastermind Zakiel is really good. He's easy to get out with the Link monster that we play in the deck. But you can also tribute summon him by you can also tribute summon this card by face up tributing 1 Magical Musket monster, so you don't even have to use 2, if you have Doc on the field or something, you can get him out, and that's really good. He has the same ability where you can activate spells and traps, Magical Musketeer spell and traps from your hands. Also, once per turn, during your opponent's end phase, you can draw cards equal to the number of Magical Musket spells and traps you activate this turn. While this card was face up on your field, you only use its effect of Magical Musketeer Mastermind Zakel per turn. So, just, being able to, if we play 2 or 3 during our opponent's turn, which, you probably will, being able to draw that many cards is really good. But we really get him up to 5,000 attack and swing over our opponent's monsters with him a lot. That's really what I use him for. For the last 3 cards, let's see, monsters of the main deck, just 3 Ash, just because we don't want our opponent building up their board. This is a tough deck to play against for building up your board, and Ash just really kind of solidifies that, because, everything in our deck is a hand trap, and then playing 3 of the best hand traps in the game, just kind of sucks for your opponent. So we're here to make our opponent's day suck for sure. So that's it for the monsters. Let's move right on into the traps. We play 3 Magical Musket Steady Hands. Now, Steady Hands is what I was talking about, because our Magical Musketeer cards aren't inherently strong by nature. So we use Steady Hands to kind of fix that. What this card does is you can target one Magical Musket monster you control, and its attack and defense comes double its original attack and defense to the end of this turn, which is really, really great for beating over. We really try to target Mastermind Zakel, so he's at 5,000, just like that. But the only caveat is that monster can attack directly the turn you activate this card. Kind of sucks, but that's fine, because if you use Zakel to beat over our opponent's boss monsters, we still have like a 17 to 16, 1,000 to 13 or 1,200 attack monster on the field with all of our Magical Musket monsters, and that really adds up fast. So moving on, we play probably my favorite card of the deck is actually the second favorite card of the deck is Magical Musket Cross Domination. This card is really crazy. What it does is if you control a Magical Musket monster, target one face-up monster on the field until the end of this turn, changes attack and defense to 0. Also, it has its effects negated, so it's really like a Lost Wind. You can only activate one of these cards per turn. So it's just like a Lost Wind. I call him a neuterer. It neuters your opponent's monsters. But this is a really great card to have if your opponent has out a tough boss monster and we're not able to get out Mastermind Zakel and Steady Hands. That's a really great card to kind of shut them up. And then 3, Call by the Grave, just because we don't want to have to deal with our opponent's hand traps, because, hey, we're the hand trap deck in this match, and you got to deal with ours, and we don't want to deal with yours. For the last one, I do play 1 Raigeki. I know, I love this card. I do. I really love Raigeki. If you don't want to play this, you don't have to, but I just like it for extra board removal of our opponent's monsters. So that's it for the spells. We don't play a ton of spells. We play more traps. So moving on to the traps, this is my favorite Magical Musket card of the entire deck. Last Stand. This card is crazy, and being able to activate this from your hand is just really not fair. What this card does is a counter trap, so it's spell speed 3. And when your opponent activates a spell or trap card while you control a Magical Musket monster, and negate the activation if you do destroy it. So it's kind of like the vampire, Domination card. I think it's Domination, where you don't have to pay activation costs, or maintenance costs. It's just a free negate. And because we're definitely going to have a Magical Musket monster on the field, so just being able to stop potentially one of your opponent's plays, like starting plays, this card can really shut down your opponent. For the next 3, I really love this one, Magical Musket Desperado. I definitely recommend playing 3 Desperado, because it helps so much, and just being able to search it is so searchable. You can only activate 1 per turn, but what it does is if you control a Magical Musket monster, target one face-up card on the field and destroy it. So it doesn't even have to be a monster, just being able to pop any face-up card your opponent controls. This card definitely gives your opponent grief. For a few 2-ofs, we play 2 Magical Musket Dancing Needle. Now, I tried Dancing Needle at 3, and that did not work well at all, so I don't recommend it. Because a lot of times you'll get this card first turn, and you won't have a target to be able to activate this card and go off and fire off your Starfire or your Kaspar's effect. But what this card does is if you control a Magical Musket monster, you can target up to 3 cards in the graveyards and banish them. So really good for getting your opponent's resources in the graveyard out of the way, since in this day and age, graveyard is really a second hand. This card really, really helps with that. And then as soon as you play this, you get to banish 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard. Unless you're playing Thunder Dragons, then you don't want to do that. But you get to banish 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard. And then you get to activate one of your monster's effects because you're going to activate it in one of their columns. We play 2 Fiendish Deal. I really like this card. You could bump this down to 1 if you want, but I think it's pretty helpful. What it does is magical musket monsters you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. If this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can add 1 magical musket card from your deck to your graveyard to your hand, except another copy of this card. You can only activate 1 magical musket Fiendish Deal per turn. So protection effect and then a floating effect to where you can add any magical musket card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. That's really strong. A lot of times your opponent doesn't really pay attention to the second effect. So if they pop it, you start searching, you can add it, and they're like, well, crap, I should have paid more attention. That's happened several times. I will say a word of caution. With this one, and then one I'm about to show, Crooked Crown, be careful, because these are continuous spells. We don't play a ton of them for a reason. We don't want to lock out our spell and trap card zones, because that has happened to me one time to where I didn't have any other choice. I had to play a Fiendish Deal and a Crooked Crown because I didn't have anything else to fire off my Magical Musket's effects. And then I had 3 zones that were just locked out, and that just wasn't good at all. So be careful, be very, very conscious about where you're playing things and where your monsters are if you're playing Fiendish Deal and Crooked Crown. And that's why we don't play this more. For the next one, Crooked Crown, like I just said, this is another continuous one where you can only control 1 Magical Musket Crooked Crown. During the main phase, you can special summon 1 Magical Musket monster from your hand, and if you do, your opponent's main monster zone in that monster's current column is unused. That zone cannot be used until the end of this turn. Even if this card leaves the field, you can only use this effective Magical Musket Crooked Crown once per turn. So just an extra special summon for my hand is really what we use this for. That's really good sometimes, because sometimes we do need it if we have a not as good of hand with more Calamities or Wilds or Kid Braves. So that's really good. And then just the last 2. I play 2. Come down some. Not Magical Musket. This is not a Magical Musket card, guys. Black Horn of Heaven. I love Black Horn of Heaven. If you want to substitute this for anything else, go for it. If you'd rather play Solemn Strike, Solemn Warning, Solemn Judgment, go for it. I just like this because you don't have to pay life points, and it negates the special summon of a monster, and it's a spell speed 3, so I really like that. But that's it for the main deck. I am playing just a pure build. I know that's probably annoying to some people, but it gives you a lot of wiggle room to experience, what you want. But I'm only playing 3 Magical Musketeer max, so you have 12 other spots to put whatever you want into the extra deck. But I'm just playing these 3 because this card is freaking insane, guys. It is a level 1, it's not a level 1, it's a Link 1 monster. All it requires is a level 8 or lower Magical Musket monster, which is everything that we have in the deck. So this card really punishes your opponent for having a full board, regardless of if it's spells or traps or monsters, because what this card does is this is really good going second or third card. Because with the Magical Muskets, you kind of want to go first as much as you can, but if you go second or if you go in the third turn and you don't really have a great board, this card can really help out with that. So what this card does is when this card is Link Summon, you activate one of 2 effects. You can add Magical Musket spells and traps with different names from your deck to your hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls. That's insane. Or you can special summon Magical Musket monsters with different names from your deck up to the number of spells and traps your opponent controls. You can only use this effective Magical Musketeer max per turn, and then he also has the effect that you can activate spells and traps from your hand during the player's turn as well, as long as they're Magical Musket spells and traps. So, he is such a great, he's the ultimate searcher. And then you can also special summon Mastermind Zakiel as well, because it doesn't have a level limit on the special summon from the deck if your opponent has spells and traps on the field. So I really like being able to add a Last Stand, a Desperado, a Dancing Needle, a Fiendish Deal. That's crazy, being able to add all those cards and then being able to activate them all during your opponent's turn. That's really crazy. This card is definitely probably the MVP of the entire deck. But that's it for the deck, guys. There's not a lot to it. I think this is a pure Magical Musketeer build. I really, really like it. This is definitely one of my favorite decks to play with. If you haven't had a chance to, it's budget now. It is super budget. At one time, someone had bought out Last Stand and Cross Domination on TCG Player. I think that's over with now. I think you can get them both for $2 a piece. But definitely, if you haven't had a chance to, go pick up a playset of Kaspar and Starfire and get this deck. I think you can get it on eBay pretty cheap as well. and play it, man. It is fun, and your opponent, like, it's a really unique deck because of the ability to make all your spells and traps into hand traps. It's really unique. Your opponent will have a tough time with it, and you'll have a blast. That's it, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you want to see anything else, what else you ever want to see. Let me know. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.